Hello and welcome back. I'm Andy, and here is our Python course, and today we are going to learn how to draw maps. In the past few sessions, you remember we did some data visualization with matplotlib, and we learned how to draw diagrams and so on, but Python can do much more, especially Google Colab. It's very nice because you can work there without having to install anything, and it beautifully puts the results nicely into your notebook. So it is really great environment to work in. And one of the things you can do, especially for the humanities, is to draw maps, because much of humanities is about maps, how people have moved around, how particular people have moved around. Let's say Aristotle moving from city to city and doing his thing. And then, of course, in history, we have wars, we have movements of whole populations that are displaced and go from one place to the other. So, history, particularly, but also other disciplines like philosophy, for example, can profit from having maps and visualizations on maps. For philosophy specifically, you could plot how the pre-Socratics move across the map and how they develop from, the Milesian philosophers later to Elea and later then to Athens. So all this can be done using a module in Python that is called Folium. And Folium always works in exactly the same way. And I wrote it down here for you in this notebook what you have to do. You have to first, let me make it a little bigger, create a map. Then after you create your map, you can add things to it. For example, markers for places, or you can add, little tooltips, or you can add areas that are highlighted with a circle. You can add lines to it, and then you display it. And this is, we will see in a moment what you have to do. Let's just go down and look at the code. So here's what we do first. This is something you will have to do every time you use a Folium map, because you have to install it in Google Colab. It's not installed by default. So the first thing is pip install Folium, which will just go and install the thing in your Google Colab environment. No problem, it works perfectly. And after you installed it, you have to import it. Now, you don't need to install it every time. If it is already installed in this session, you can just comment this out, then it will run a little faster. You can also, as we will see in the next video, have this done automatically. You can install it only if it's not installed by checking if you get an error when you try to import it. And we will do this, as I said, in the next video. You will see how this works. Okay, so the first thing to do when you want to work with Folium is to create a map, because the whole point is to print things on the map. And you do this, in this case, I call it my map, is the variable I use to store my map in. So it's a variable that will keep my map object. And then I create it by calling folium.map, make sure map is capitalized. And in brackets, I have to tell it where to center my map, what the center of my map should be, and what the magnification, the initial magnification should be. The user can always make the map bigger or smaller, but you want, the moment you show it the first time, you want it to be reasonably zoomed for what you want to show. And this can be very different, right? There is no right default. If I want to center it on Hemingway's flat in Paris, for example, when he wrote his story about Paris, then I would have to perhaps zoom to a single house or a little, area around his house and a few streets around his house. If I want, on the other hand, to display the conquests of Alexander the Great, where he went from Macedonia to Egypt and then, to the east, to Pakistan, then I will have to show half of Asia and half of the Mediterranean on my map. So I will have a much more zoomed out map. So, it depends on you what you want to show. You have to zoom accordingly. And that's it. And then we have our map. And now I can work with the map. And this is amazing, right? That you can create a map so easily. And you can use it outside of Python. I mean, this is what I love about this, that these things are so useful. You can use them as genuine illustration functions that you can use outside of Python. You can just create the map, store it in a file, a JPEG file or something, PNG file, and then embed it into whatever other document you have, lecture notes, books. So you can use this to create your own maps, your own illustrations for other projects. And the same is true, obviously, also of what we did previously, the visualization, Matplotlib. You can always get the result out of Google Colab by saving it as a graphics file, and then you can use this graphics file somewhere else. Now, the next thing that has to happen, we have to add a marker to make the map more interesting, right? We have to mark what we want to mark. So in this case, I'm drawing Paris and I want to put a mark on the Eiffel Tower. So this happens with Folium.marker. I have to give the location of my marker, and then I can give a pop-up. This is a little node that will appear if I click on this marker. And after I have defined my marker in this way, I call a method of the marker that's called add_to, and I pass it my map variable. And so this then is added to my map. So I could have, for example, multiple maps and add the same marker to multiple maps. That would be perfectly fine. And then we add a second marker for the Louvre Museum. So again, I have a location, I have a pop-up, I add it to my map, and I display the map. So in the end, the last thing, this is important, otherwise you won't see anything. The last thing in your Folium code should be calling this map object, just as writing down this map object, because Python is going to evaluate the last thing that you write in a code block as the return value. And so in this case, we print the map. Okay, let's execute this. And the first thing that will happen, you see all these messages. Don't be scared. This is the installation of Folium because I have it in my notebook. My notebook has been overnight, it has been terminated, right? It has been emptied. So now I get it installed again. Okay, and here we go. Here's our map. This is the initial magnification. If you look at the code, this is a magnification of 13, right? It says here, this is the start magnification, 13. It looks like that. And this encompasses a big part of Paris. I could start bigger or smaller. So the bigger the number is, let's say I put here instead of 13, let's say I put 20. Let's try this to see what will happen. And now I go down. And you see with a magnification of 20, I get everything much bigger. So now I see the Louvre here directly as a box. So this 20 is more if you want to focus on specific buildings, while if I take, let's say, a magnification of 2, then I will see essentially a world map. So here we go, a world map with Paris. And so what exactly this means, the magnification level, it does not mean anything in any real units. You have to decide for yourself what is useful for your application. So here perhaps something like 10, then we see the whole of Paris. Oh, we see much more than the whole of Paris. Okay, perhaps I should have taken 12 or something. Okay, this is how Folium works, and that's in principle all of it. You can use it to do all sorts of visualizations just by using that. So let's now also see the pop-up. If I click on these things that I created here, let me go down a little bit. You see, as a user, I can move the map, I can scroll in or out. So it's no problem really. The initial zoom level that you have there, the user can change it anytime with their mouse. And now I go on this and click on it, and then you see this pop-up function, right? Which will now tell me what I'm seeing when I click on it. It pops up, okay? And this is what I specified. Let me go back to show you again to make sure that you see it. Pop up the Eiffel Tower, pop up the Louvre Museum, right? So this is what I do here. Okay, let's go down. Next thing we have to do, ancient Greek colonies. I want to go back to ancient Greece, my favorite place. And we can also scale the map. If the map is too big for the screen, we can make it a little smaller so that it fits better. You can use any values. These are pixels, right? You can just make it smaller or bigger. And Again, now we want ancient Greek colonies. So first I install Folium, then I import Folium. And now I need my colonies. And what I'm doing here is to create a list. I don't want to put them individually there. I make a list. And in order to construct these lists, a good tip is perhaps to use AI. This is the work for which AI was made, the stupid work that you don't want to do by hand. So instead of having to type all these colonies in there, you can just ask ChatGPT, give me a list of the 10 most important ancient Greek colonies in a list of dictionaries format for Python, and each colony should be a dictionary containing a name, a latitude, a longitude, and a description, and then put them all together into a list. And if you say something like this, you will get essentially this thing here, which now you don't have to make yourself. It will be already be made, and you can just copy it into your code. Of course, you have to check it, especially the latitudes, longitudes. They might be wrong. Large language models are not always reliable, right? You have to see if this comes out correctly. Because, specifically for this example, for modern cities, the language model will have information that it has read on the internet about where these places are located. But for ancient places, it's more difficult to find GPS coordinates for Massalia, right? Who knows if there is anything in this training data? And if there is nothing in the training data, then you get garbage out of it. So make sure you check this. Plot it is the easiest, right? And then look where it ends up. Okay, so here we have all these cities, the descriptions, and these are just five colonies here. And then we create a map. We put the map center somewhere suitable, and we create an ancient map. Now, ancient map is just the name of my variable. It doesn't matter how you call it. A Folium map. And the location now is the map center. This is what we did in the previous map too. The zoom at the start is 5, so it's much less than the Paris map, because now we want all the colonies in the Mediterranean. We have to cover a bigger area. And then I give a width and a height, because I want a map of a particular size to fit on my screen here. And I do another thing, which is to choose different tiles. So there are different tile sets that you can use for these maps. And this is a little sketchy with these tile sets, because some of them are free, some are not free. Some are free with attribution, and you need to put a particular code for the attribution in there. So this is all something that you should probably avoid. So try to see which tiles are free at the moment you are creating your program and what you can find on the internet, and then specify the tile set you want here. But I would avoid commercial tile sets, because, for example, recently, there was a case that a tile set changed its policy, and then it used to be free and now it's not free. And so whatever projects you had using that now won't work until you adapt the code. And so it's a hassle. Just take, if you can, free tile sets that are guaranteed to stay free. Okay, so tiles means, in case it's not clear, the pieces of the map, how the map is actually drawn. I mean, somebody has to draw the map, right? And the default map will always be there for you. But the problem is, of course, the default map is a modern city map. So if you want to draw ancient cities, it's not that good. Or if you want to draw, let's say, fictional places, you want to draw Middle Earth, and you cannot use it at all. So then you will need a tile set for the area or for the time or for the atmosphere you want to draw. Okay, anyway, here we put them onto this tile set, CartoDB positron. If you want to find the names of these, just search for Folium tile sets on the internet. You will see a list of available tile sets. And now for colonies, I have a for loop that goes through all my colonies, right? You remember the colonies is a list of dictionaries. So I get a colony is one dictionary, and now the location is out of this dictionary, the latitude and longitude, and the pop-up text is what I get from the description, right? And the tooltip text is click to learn about colony name. So a tooltip is a floating. It's not what I get, the pop-up, what I get when I click on the colony, but it's a floating information that I see. And when I click on that, I will get the actual description, right, that I get from the pop-up. So the pop-up is this thing that I get to see, the little window, the little box that I get to see when I click on the marker, while the tooltip is a hovering tooltip that is there, but then doesn't do anything. And when I click on it, then I will get my pop-up. Okay, we will see it in a moment. And then I create a marker for every colony. So we are still in the for loop, right? And for every colony now I make a marker with a location, with a pop-up, with a tooltip, and with an icon. And you also have icons available, right? You can choose icons, and there are different icons. Again, you should go and get a list of icons again from the internet. You can color your icons, and you can have particular icons. This one will display an anchor for every city, but there are many other symbols that you can use. And finally, I add everything to my ancient map. So let's do it. Now it's faster because it's already, everything is installed and the thing is already started. Okay, here we go. And this is what you see now. This is my map. And this map, you see it's much different, right? It doesn't have so much detail. It doesn't have so much colors and contrast like my previous map. This is mainly a gray on white map. And the point of this map, there's also an inverse one. There's a map that's primarily black. The point of these more monochrome or low contrast maps is to make it easy for you to write on them. So you can put labels on them, you can put markers on them, and they are much more visible because the map itself is so uniform in color, right? So soft in color. And that's the idea, right? This is why these maps are not so contrasty and so colorful, so busy, right? So now if I want to draw, for example, Alexander the Great's travels, I can easily do this in this map and it will be very well visible. While if I take the normal map, the street map, it will be so full of markers and colors and highways and so on that it will be hard to see these places. Okay, and now you see the tooltip. When I hover over it, I get my tooltip, click to learn and so on. And when I actually click, I get this thing popping up, which contains the description. Okay, and that's it. So you see we get different colonies here all over the Mediterranean. And of course, these are only a few of them. And now if I wanted to save this, there are various ways how I could save it. I think the easiest is to take a screenshot of that. You can also save it. There are functions to save it, but we don't want to make it more complicated. Okay, so the next thing here we have the different tile sets. You have a dark matter map. Here is the code for doing it. You say tiles is, and in this case, CartoDB positron, but you can also use others. So dark matter looks like this. It's very dark, right? It's almost impossible to see on my screen now. Okay, so this was it. Now we want to create another custom marker here. Let's try to see what this will do, and then I will explain to you what's happening. Here we have a custom information marker. You see this one. It works the same. Again, it has a tooltip, it has a description, it has a pop-up. But what happens here is we use again another icon. We use the info sign icon and we color it red. So you can do this. You can add all sorts of different markers. And now another different thing you can add are circles, circle and circle markers. And Folium circle draws a circle with a radius specified in meters. So that's important. If you specify it in meters, obviously, then There are meters on the map, so it sticks on the map and has the same magnification as the map. So when you make the map bigger and smaller, your circle will be bigger and smaller because it's in meters, right? And then we have the other thing called the circle marker, and this is different from the circle in that its size is specified in pixels and always stays the same. So now which one you use, you have to think according to your use case, right? So let me show you what this looks like. We started here, and you see now we have two different circles, and the red circle is, here's the crimson one, is a circle, and the circle marker is the blue one. So the blue one is the marker and the red is the circle. And now look what happens when I zoom. When I zoom, the circle gets bigger, but the circle marker does not get bigger. And when I zoom smaller, the circle gets smaller, but the circle marker does not get any smaller. So this means the circle marker always is glued essentially to your screen from the inside, right? It's just always the same. It's always the same on your screen. And it's different sizes on the ground. So now it encompasses, the whole of Los Angeles. If I make it smaller, I can make it the size of the United States if I wanted. But the actual circle, not the circle marker, is stuck on the map, is stuck on the geography, and zooms together with the geography. And this is useful if you want to make statements about the geography. If you say, for example, here, this is the area where, let's say, the earthquake hit and houses were destroyed, then you're going to paint this circle that does not depend on the magnification of the map, because when I make the map smaller, then I didn't magnify the earthquake. It's still the same area. While if you want to say, look here is where Hemingway lived, then you probably want to have a circle marker so that even if the user goes out there, he still can see where your circle marker is. Because if the thing becomes too small at some point, then it will not be possible to see it. Okay, so think according to your use case what you need, and the Folium circle is here. You specify the radius in meters, and otherwise it works exactly like a marker. You can also have an opacity here, which is useful. You can say how see-through the thing should be. Opacity 1 is it's totally opaque, you don't see anything in it, and a lower opacity means I can see through it. And so you have to decide. 0.2 is okay, it's well visible, but you still can see through it. But you can change it according to what you like. And here with the circle marker, I have the radius in pixels. And so this is the only difference between them, and this is your call, what of the two you want. Now, a last thing we will learn here before we finish, indicate historical movement with arrows. Unfortunately, Folium does not offer arrows. You don't have an arrow. What you have are lines, and you have what is called a polyline, which is a line with multiple segments, and you can give coordinates for each segment. You can say where the segment starts and where the segment ends. And here is the code to do this. We install Folium again, we import the libraries, and then we have to import the plugins, because this is a plugin that we will use. We have a start point, we have an end point for our line. These are the start and end points for our line, for our arrow. Then I create my base map. I give it a location, I give it a start zoom, the width and the height, we know this already. And then I add markers for the start and end, because I want to connect the markers later with the line. So here we go, this is the Oregon Trail. I start somewhere, I give a tooltip, I end, I give a tooltip. And now I want to draw a line, and I draw a polyline from the location start point to the location end point. So locations gives you how the line is drawn. And because it is a list, I can put as many elements as I want in there. So I can have 3, 4, 5, 6 points, and then the line will be drawn from point to point. Weight is how thick the line will be, and the color of my line is blue. And then I add it to my map. Okay, so let me remove the next piece of code for the moment. I will remove this so that you can see. Let me comment this away so that you can see what it does until now, so we're not confused with the arrows. Here we go. You have your two markers. The markers have a tooltip, the markers have a pop-up, and you have a line connecting them. So this was reasonably easy, right? And now it's where we need the plugin if we want to make arrows out of the line, because actually most of the time in history you want to make an arrow to show development, right? The settlers went from here to there, so it's important to know which direction the thing goes. And yeah, unfortunately you have to fake the arrows because Python Folium does not give you any arrows. So how we can fake it is by adding text to the line, and the text that we add, you see it here, is just one Unicode character that is the symbol for an arrowhead or a triangle. So you can get whatever looks like an arrowhead to you. Unicode symbols are full of graphic characters like this. You can find different arrowheads, flatter and bigger and smaller and whatever, colored and not colored and open and closed. So find one that you like, copy it in there, and then you can print it. And this is how it works. You say, I want to put my text, which in this case is my fake arrowhead, but it could be any text. You could also write on the line. I want to put my text there on this line, and line is my line that I created with polyline over here, right? This is the line I'm using here. I put the text on it. I repeat the text true with an offset of 10 pixels away from the line. And then I have my attributes. I want this to be printed, filled with black, with a font weight bold, because don't forget it's a font, it's a character, and a font size of 24, and then I add it. So let's do it. Execute it, and here I have my black triangles. So this perhaps looks different from what you wanted or what you expected. Why does this look like that? Because first I said I want it repeated. I could have said for repeat false, and then look what happens. Now I get only one of them. The next thing, I have the offset. Let's change the offset a little bit. Instead of 10, let's say 30. And then you see now it moves it away from the line. So I always get it on top of the line in the direction, printed in the direction in which I am drawing. So what will happen if I actually print a text here? Let me print a text. Now you see the text is upside down. Why is it upside down? Because it prints the text in the direction of the movement of my line. And I printed my line from here to there. And so now I get my text printed upside down. This is not what I want. So one way to solve it is to print the text the other way, to print the arrow the other way. I could say, where is my line? Draw the line. Start point, end point. I could say end point, comma, start point. This would work, and now I get my thing printed correctly. But now the problem is, if I again print my arrow, I take now an easier arrow to just not have to search for the other character. Now my arrow is the wrong way around. So one solution for this is to actually print my arrow the wrong way around. So let me also add an arrow shaft there to make it a little more clear. So this is an ugly arrow, right? You have to get the Unicode character again. But now I deleted it, so I don't want to search for it again. So in this way, now we have drawn everything wrongly. We have drawn everything the wrong way, but now it finally appears correctly. So you can change the direction of your line and change the direction of your arrows, and then you get the text printed correctly. But now, again, the arrow head is not on the line. So what I need to do is to move it back to an offset of 10. By default, it will not be directly on the line. It will be, a little bit under the line. And so by moving it by 10, I move it on the line. And now you see I also have this bit of space here because I left this there. Let me remove it now. You see now I'm at the end of my line. I left this there because I originally had repeat. And now if I say repeat true, it will repeat this so many times, right, on top of the line. And this does not look good anymore. And so this is why, in order to make the repeat look better, you can add some spaces. Now it repeats the whole thing, including the space, and then I get them spaced out a little more. So these are the various ways how you could tweak this thing with the arrows, adding spaces, using different arrowheads, using the repeat, using the offset, and you can eventually, make it look like you want. But it is a hassle. It would be better if Python had a genuine, or Folium had a genuine arrow function in there. Okay, so what you need to remember, you draw the polyline, and then add the polyline text path. You can add text. Text can be a description. It can be an arrowhead that you fake. It can be repeated or not repeated. You have an offset to print it up and down, and it's always printed in the direction of, even written when it's text, in the direction that you draw your polyline. So sometimes you may wish to draw your polyline the wrong way in order to get the text show up right. And the homework I had here for my students, I will tell you, it's a nice homework. You can try to do it. Take this map, of Alexander the Great's travels, which you find somewhere. This one is, I think, from Encyclopedia Britannica. Take this map and just draw it yourself. Try to simulate it with Folium. You don't need to make it perfect, of course, but try to print it in this way. Print the arrows, of Alexander's travels going here and there, and print the main battles on the way, Issus and whatever else is here, Granicus, so the places where Alexander the Great fought his battles, Arvilla here. And yeah, and put those as markers, and then also mark the birth and death places of Alexander in your map with arrows. So here are the instructions again. I put them here on the screen for a moment so you can see them. And this is a nice exercise for that. And so with that, we are finished. This is what we did today. We printed maps. We learned how to print maps, how to print with Folium, how to print text on the maps, how to print markers, how to print arrows, how to print lines. I hope this was useful and you enjoyed it. And next time we will do something different. Thank you and goodbye.